Calm is not personality. Calm is control. When pressure rises, most people speed up. They talk more. They react faster. They lose command. Control is not found in force. It is found in restraint. If your emotions decide your timing, you are not in charge. If urgency controls your actions, you are exposed. Calm is the advantage no one teaches. Calm is what separates authority from chaos. This audiobook trains one skill: the ability to stay steady when everything pushes you to react. That skill changes outcomes. That skill changes power. Pressure exposes truth. Not opinions. Not intentions. Habits. When pressure hits, what you do first is not a decision. It is a reflex. Most people speed up. They answer faster. They speak more. They move without thinking. They believe speed equals competence. It does not. Speed under pressure usually means loss of control. You see it everywhere. In conversations. In work. In conflict. In decisions that matter. Urgency enters the room, and clarity leaves. That is the pattern. Under pressure, the nervous system wants release. It wants motion. It wants reaction. But reaction is not strength. Reaction is exposure. Calm interrupts this cycle. Calm does not mean hesitation. It means command. You have a choice. That is the key. The moment pressure appears, there is a fork. React immediately. Or slow the moment. Most people never see the fork. They rush past it. They confuse action with control. They confuse movement with leadership. Pressure rewards those who can stay steady. Think about authority. Real authority does not rush. It does not explain itself. It does not scramble to respond. It waits. It observes. Then it acts. Urgency hijacks judgment. When urgency is in control, thinking narrows. Options disappear. Emotion takes the wheel. Decisions become smaller. Words become careless. Mistakes multiply. You have seen this in yourself. A message arrives with tension. You reply instantly. Later, you regret the tone. A problem appears at work. You rush to fix it. You miss the real cause. A conflict escalates. You react emotionally. The situation worsens. This is not because you lack intelligence. It is because speed replaced awareness. That must stop. It's not about intensity. It's about discipline. That's the key. Control begins when speed is reduced deliberately. Not slowed by fear. Slowed by choice. The pause is the skill. Stillness before action is not passive. It is strategic. In that pause, several things happen. The body settles. The breath evens. The mind widens. You see more. You hear more. You think more clearly. Pressure wants to collapse time. Calm expands it. You don't need their permission to pause. That matters. Most people feel rushed because they believe someone else controls the clock. They don't. Urgency is often artificial. Created by expectations. Deadlines. Social pressure. But reacting to urgency does not remove it. It strengthens it. When you respond immediately every time, you train others to rush you. You teach them that pressure works. That weakens authority. Calm retrains the environment. When you slow down under pressure, others adjust. They wait. They soften. They reveal more information. Silence often brings clarity. Here is a practical shift. When pressure hits, do not respond immediately. Do not speak first. Do not move yet. Breathe once. Then again. Ask one internal question. What actually needs to be done? Not what feels urgent. What is necessary? That question changes everything. You move from reaction to evaluation. You have a choice. That's the key. Pressure tests discipline. Anyone can stay calm when nothing is happening. Few can do it when stakes rise. That is why calm is rare. And why it is powerful. Most people believe calm means lack of care. They are wrong. Calm means control of care. You choose where attention goes. You choose what deserves action. You choose timing. That is authority. Notice how confident people behave under pressure. They speak less. They move slower. They are not rushed by noise. They are not cold. They are composed. Composition is trained. Stillness is trained. The habit you are breaking is automatic urgency. The habit you are building is deliberate response. This requires discipline. It's not about emotion. It's about structure. That's the key. Structure creates calm. Simple rules help. No instant replies when emotions are high. No decisions made in the first minute of pressure. No explanations offered to relieve discomfort. Discomfort is not danger. Most reactions are attempts to escape discomfort. The discomfort of silence. The discomfort of waiting. The discomfort of not knowing yet. Sit with it. That is training. Each time you resist immediate reaction, you strengthen control. Each pause builds capacity. Each delayed response sharpens judgment. You are not losing time. You are gaining accuracy. Under pressure, accuracy matters more than speed. Mistakes made fast still take time to fix. Calm prevents damage before it happens. This is why leaders are trained to slow down in crises. Not to panic. Not to rush orders. To stabilize first. Stability creates direction. Direction creates results. You don't need their permission to stabilize yourself. Remember that. Pressure will try to push you forward. Emotion will try to pull you outward. Your job is to stay centered. Observe first. Then decide. That sequence is non-negotiable. Stillness is the gate. Choice is on the other side. Most people never reach it. You will. Because you practice. Because you slow deliberately. Because you refuse to let urgency dictate behavior. That is discipline. That is control. That is calm under pressure. You have learned how pressure exposes habits. You have learned how urgency hijacks thinking. You have learned why slowing down restores authority. Now it's time to understand why silence, not speed, strengthens presence. Silence makes most people uncomfortable. They fill gaps quickly. They explain. They justify. They add words to relieve tension. This is not communication. It is escape. Silence is misread as weakness because most people only experience it as absence. Absence of confidence. Absence of certainty. Absence of control. But true silence is not empty. It is deliberate. Silence is restraint. And restraint is power. When you speak too quickly, you give information away. When you speak too much, you expose uncertainty. When you rush to respond, you surrender position. Most people talk to reduce pressure. They think words will protect them. They don't. They weaken them. Silence does the opposite. Silence holds ground. You have a choice. That's the key. When something is said to you, you do not owe an immediate reply. You do not owe an explanation. You do not owe reassurance. You owe clarity. And clarity often requires waiting. Look at everyday situations. Someone challenges your decision. Most people rush to defend it. Someone questions your competence. They start listing reasons. Someone disagrees. They argue instantly. Each reaction signals the same thing: instability. Not because the position is wrong, but because the response is uncontrolled. Silence changes the dynamic. When you do not react immediately, several things happen. The other person reveals more. The emotional charge drops. You gain time to think. Time is leverage. Silence creates time. That's the key. Silence is not passive. It is active containment. You are holding the moment instead of being pushed by it. This is why confident people speak less. Not because they lack words. Because they don't waste them. They understand that words have weight. And weight requires control. Most people talk to prove. Strong people speak to decide. There is a difference. Explaining is often a reflex, not a strategy. It comes from the fear of being misunderstood. Or the fear of being judged. But explaining rarely fixes either. It invites scrutiny. It opens negotiation. It dilutes authority. Silence closes the loop. You don't need their permission to stop explaining. That matters. Silence does not mean you agree. It means you are not reactive. Silence does not mean you are unsure. It means you are deliberate. Silence does not mean you are weak. It means you are stable. Stability unsettles people who rely on pressure. Pressure needs movement to work. Silence removes it. That is why silence feels powerful in a room. It shifts the center. Most people are afraid of silence because it forces presence. There is nothing to hide behind. No words. No justifications. No noise. Just posture. Just composure. That takes discipline. It's not about confidence. It's about control. That's the key. Here is where people get it wrong. They think silence means never speaking. That is not discipline. That is avoidance. Disciplined silence is selective. You speak when words add value. You stay silent when they don't. This requires judgment. Before speaking, ask one question. Does this improve the situation? Not soothe emotion. Not reduce discomfort. Improve outcome. If the answer is no, remain silent. That is not withdrawal. That is command. Silence also protects you from unnecessary commitment. When you speak too soon, you lock yourself into positions you have not fully evaluated. You promise things prematurely. You defend ideas that needed refinement. Silence gives you space to choose better. You have a choice. That's the key. Notice how silence affects conversations. When you stop filling gaps, others talk more. They clarify their position. They expose assumptions. Information surfaces. Silence draws information out. Talking shuts it down. This is why skilled negotiators pause. Why experienced leaders listen longer. Why composed individuals are harder to manipulate. They are not rushed by discomfort. They allow the moment to breathe. Silence also strengthens emotional control. When emotions rise, words tend to escalate them. Tone sharpens. Language becomes careless. Silence interrupts that spiral. It gives the nervous system time to settle. It prevents damage. Damage avoided is strength preserved. Most people regret what they said. Few regret what they didn't. That should tell you something. Silence is a buffer. A protective layer between impulse and consequence. Stillness before speech is the same principle as stillness before action. The pause comes first. Then choice. Without the pause, silence feels impossible. With it, silence feels natural. That pause is trained. Start small. The next time you feel the urge to explain, don't. Pause instead. Let the moment sit. Observe what happens internally. The urge will spike. Then fade. That fading is discipline forming. Each time you resist unnecessary speech, you strengthen control. You don't need their permission to remain quiet. Remember that. People may try to pull words out of you. They may misinterpret silence. Let them. Interpretation is not your responsibility. Behavior is. Silence allows you to respond later from a position of clarity. Delayed responses are often better responses. This is not about being mysterious. It is about being precise. Precision requires restraint. And restraint requires discipline. That's the key. Silence also changes how you see yourself. When you stop explaining, you stop seeking validation. You stop performing. You stop negotiating your worth. You act. You decide. You move forward. Words follow action. Not the other way around. This alignment builds internal authority. You trust yourself more when you don't overjustify. You stand firmer when you don't overcommunicate. Silence becomes natural. Not forced. Not tense. Grounded. This is why silence feels heavy to some and solid to others. It depends on what is underneath. If there is chaos inside, silence amplifies it. If there is order, silence reinforces it. Order is built through discipline. You are building order. You are learning when not to speak. That is strength. You have learned that silence is not weakness. You have learned that words used without discipline erode authority. You have learned that restraint restores balance. Now it's time to understand how observation, not expression, sharpens judgment. Most people speak before they understand. They hear something. They feel something. They respond immediately. This feels normal. It is not effective. Speaking first gives the illusion of control. Observation creates actual control. Observation is not passive. It is active attention. When you observe, you gather information. When you speak too soon, you leak position. That difference shapes outcomes. You have a choice. That's the key. Observation means you slow the moment internally. You watch what is happening without inserting yourself into it. Most people cannot do this. They confuse awareness with agreement. They confuse silence with weakness. They confuse restraint with fear. So they talk. They interrupt. They clarify prematurely. They defend before understanding the full picture. This is not confidence. It is reflex. Reflex removes judgment. Observation restores it. Before any meaningful response, three things are happening. Words are being chosen by the other person. Emotion is being expressed, even if indirectly. Intent is being revealed over time. If you speak too early, you miss all three. Observation lets patterns emerge. Patterns matter more than statements. One sentence rarely tells the truth. A sequence does. People reveal themselves when you don't interrupt. They clarify their own thinking when you stay quiet. They expose inconsistency when they keep talking. Your job is not to react. Your job is to see. Seeing comes before deciding. That's the key. Observation also separates facts from emotion. Emotion is loud. Facts are quiet. When you respond to emotion, you escalate. When you observe it, you neutralize it. This is especially important under pressure. Pressure compresses time. It pushes you to act fast. That is exactly when observation matters most. Speed feels productive. It often creates error. Slowing internally does not mean delaying action externally. It means choosing better action. Stillness sharpens perception. You are not freezing. You are aligning. It's not about hesitation. It's about clarity. Most mistakes happen because people respond to the first layer. The tone. The attitude. The surface message. Observation penetrates layers. You notice what is not said. You notice timing. You notice shifts. This information gives you leverage. Talking too soon gives it away. You don't need their permission to observe. Remember that. Observation also protects you from manipulation. Manipulation relies on urgency. It relies on emotional hooks. It relies on reaction. If you pause and observe, the hook loses power. You are no longer pulled. You are grounded. Grounded people are difficult to move. That is not stubbornness. That is control. Control begins internally. That's the key. Here is what observation looks like in practice. Someone criticizes you. Instead of responding, you listen fully. Not to defend. To understand. Is the criticism emotional or factual? Is it specific or vague? Is it about you or about them? You cannot answer these questions if you speak immediately. Observation gives you data. With data, you decide. Without it, you react. Another example. A plan starts to fall apart. Most people panic. They start explaining. They rush to fix perception. Observation asks a different question. What exactly failed? What is still intact? What can be adjusted? Emotion clouds this assessment. Stillness clears it. Observation also improves timing. Timing is not luck. It is awareness applied. You respond when the moment is right. Not when the pressure is highest. High pressure is rarely the right moment. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is positioning. You are allowing the situation to reveal itself. That takes discipline. It's not about intelligence. It's about restraint. That's the key. Many people believe observation means doing nothing. That belief keeps them reactive. Observation always leads to action. Just not rushed action. You observe. You decide. You act. In that order. Reverse it, and control disappears. This order applies everywhere. Conversations. Work decisions. Conflict. Negotiation. Observation is the common denominator. When you speak after observing, your words land differently. They are shorter. They are clearer. They are harder to challenge. Because they are grounded. You are not improvising. You are responding intentionally. That is authority. Authority does not announce itself. It is felt. Observation also strengthens self-control. When you watch your own internal reactions without acting on them, you gain distance. You notice impulses. You notice urges. You do not obey them automatically. This builds discipline. Stillness before speech mirrors stillness before action. The same muscle is being trained. That muscle is attention. Attention directed inward and outward. Most people live externally driven. They react to inputs. You are learning to be internally guided. You decide when to engage. That's the key. Here is a simple practice. In your next interaction, delay your response by 3 seconds. Not outwardly. Internally. Breathe. Listen fully. Notice tone and content. Then speak or don't. That pause will feel uncomfortable at first. Good. Discomfort signals training. The urge to speak is habit. Breaking it builds control. Another practice. When you feel defensive, say nothing. Defense is often unnecessary. It reveals insecurity more than strength. Observation lets defensiveness dissolve on its own. Silence combined with attention often resolves tension without words. This is not avoidance. It is mastery. You are not suppressing. You are choosing. You have a choice. That's the key. Observation also changes how others interact with you. People slow down around you. They become more precise. They reveal more. Why? Because they are no longer controlling the tempo. You are. Tempo control is subtle power. Fast speakers often feel important. Slow responders are actually in control. They decide when the exchange moves forward. That decision shapes outcomes. Observation is the foundation of that decision. Without observation, silence is empty. With observation, silence is full. Full of information. Full of clarity. Full of leverage. You are building that capacity. You are learning to see before you speak. That skill compounds. It affects how you negotiate, how you lead, how you handle conflict. It reduces regret. It increases precision. Most importantly, it preserves control. You are no longer pulled into every moment. You choose engagement deliberately. That is the theme of this work. Reaction weakens. Observation stabilizes. Discipline directs. You learned how silence holds ground. You learned how observation sharpens judgment. Now it's time to understand how timing, not emotion, determines the strength of your response. Timing decides outcomes more than words ever will. Most people speak at the wrong moment. Not because they are wrong, but because they are early. They respond when emotion is high, when pressure is loud, when urgency demands speed. That is not strategy. That is surrender. Timing is not instinctive. It is trained. You have a choice. That's the key. The moment something happens, a clock starts internally. Most people rush to beat it. They think fast response equals strength. It does not. Fast response often signals instability. It shows that emotion is driving the exchange. Control appears when you do not match speed with speed. You slow down. That is where authority forms. Timing is the discipline of waiting until your response has leverage. Not silence forever. Not delay out of fear. Delay with intent. Intentional delay changes power dynamics. When you respond immediately, you are reacting to the situation as it is presented. When you wait, you allow the situation to evolve. Evolution reveals information. Information changes decisions. Most people never see this because they rush past it. That's the key. Think about conflict. Someone confronts you. Tone is sharp. Energy is aggressive. If you respond instantly, you are responding to emotion, not substance. If you wait, the emotion often loses force. Words soften. Intent becomes clearer. Your response improves without effort. Timing neutralizes pressure. Pressure only works when it controls tempo. You take tempo back by not rushing. This applies everywhere. Messages, meetings, decisions, negotiations. Urgency is often artificial. Someone else's urgency is rarely your responsibility. You don't need their permission to move at your pace. Remember that. When you feel pushed to respond, ask one question. What happens if I don't answer right now? In most cases, nothing breaks. Nothing collapses. Nothing is lost. What is lost is discomfort. And discomfort is not danger. Most people confuse the two. They respond to remove discomfort, not to improve outcomes. That habit weakens them. Timing fixes it. That's the key. Here is where timing becomes a skill. You stop responding to the first impulse. You let the second thought arrive. The first impulse is emotional. The second is usually clearer. If you respond on impulse, you speak from emotion. If you wait, you speak from judgment. Judgment carries weight. Emotion creates noise. Noise invites challenge. Clear judgment ends conversation. This is why leaders pause before answering. Why experienced professionals say less. Why composed people are harder to corner. They are not slow. They are deliberate. Deliberate timing creates presence. Presence changes how others listen. Timing also protects you from overcommitment. When you answer too quickly, you agree to things you haven't evaluated. You promise timelines you didn't assess. You accept terms without leverage. Waiting gives you space to choose. Choice is power. You have a choice. That's the key. Notice how often people rush to say yes, or rush to explain no. Both weaken position. A simple pause restores balance. I'll get back to you. I need to think about that. Silence. These are not evasions. They are boundaries. Boundaries protect control. You don't need their permission to set them. Timing also reduces mistakes. Most errors are not caused by lack of intelligence. They are caused by speed. Speed bypasses evaluation. Evaluation requires stillness. Stillness creates accuracy. Accuracy builds trust. Trust builds authority. Rushing breaks that chain. Another area where timing matters is correction. When you correct someone in the heat of the moment, resistance forms. Ego engages. Defensiveness rises. When you wait, correction lands better. Not because the message changes, but because the moment does. The same words delivered at the wrong time fail. Delivered at the right time, they stick. Timing is delivery. Delivery shapes reception. That's the key. Timing also applies internally. Your own reactions follow patterns. You feel the urge to reply, to justify, to fix. If you act immediately, you reinforce the habit. If you wait, the urge weakens. Urges peak and fall like waves. Most people act at the peak. Controlled people wait for the fall. After the fall, clarity appears. Clarity improves decisions. This is trained. Not once. Daily. Each time you wait, you strengthen the muscle. The muscle of restraint. Restraint is not suppression. It is command. You are not denying action. You are choosing timing. That distinction matters. Many people fear waiting because they think control will be taken from them. The opposite is true. The person who controls timing controls the exchange. They decide when the next move happens. That decision is influence. Influence is quiet power. Timing also reveals intent in others. When you don't respond immediately, people often reveal their real motivation. They follow up. They push. They change tone. These shifts tell you more than their initial message. If you responded instantly, you would never see them. Observation plus timing creates insight. Insight informs action. That's the key. Here is a practical rule. Never respond to emotional pressure in real time. Sleep on decisions when possible. Step away from charged conversations. Create distance before commitment. Distance is clarity. Clarity is control. This does not make you indecisive. It makes you accurate. Accuracy outperforms speed long term. Fast people create activity. Accurate people create results. Results last. Activity fades. Timing chooses results. You are learning to operate differently. You are learning to slow without losing momentum. That balance defines discipline. Discipline is not about doing more. It is about choosing better. Better choices require time. Even seconds matter. A pause of 3 seconds can change a sentence. A pause of a minute can change a decision. A pause of a day can change direction. Most people never take these pauses. You will. You have a choice. That's the key. Timing also builds internal confidence. When you know you don't have to answer immediately, pressure loses its grip. You stop feeling chased. You stop feeling cornered. You feel grounded. Grounded people move with certainty. Certainty is felt before it is spoken. This changes how people respond to you. They wait. They listen. They adjust. Because you are not reacting. You are deciding. This chapter is not about silence alone. It is about when action happens. Action without timing is force. Action with timing is precision. Precision wins. You now understand how slowing the moment restores control. You understand how timing reshapes power. Next, you will learn how restraint, not expression, protects authority under scrutiny. Authority is not created by expression. It is created by restraint. Most people believe authority comes from being seen, from being heard, from asserting themselves clearly and often. That belief creates noise. Noise weakens presence. Restraint does the opposite. Restraint concentrates power. You have a choice. That's the key. When you respond to everything, you dilute yourself. When you comment on everything, you lower your signal. When you explain every move, you invite judgment. Authority does not argue for space. It occupies it. Restraint allows that occupation. Think about how people behave when they want to be taken seriously. They talk more. They justify more. They react faster. Each of those behaviors signals the same thing. Need. Need weakens authority. Restraint removes need. It shows you are not dependent on immediate approval or agreement. You don't need their permission to hold your position. That matters. Restraint means you choose when to engage. Not because you can't respond, but because you don't have to. This distinction changes how others perceive you. People notice who stays composed under scrutiny. Who does not rush to defend. Who does not fill silence with explanation. That person is assumed to be solid. Solidity is authority. Authority is felt before it is explained. Most people undermine themselves by oversharing. They add context no one asked for. They justify decisions that didn't require defense. They respond to opinions that don't matter. Each extra word reduces weight. Precision increases it. Restraint creates precision. That's the key. Restraint also protects you from emotional leakage. When emotions rise, expression feels urgent. Anger wants release. Anxiety wants reassurance. If you act on that urge, emotion leads. When emotion leads, authority disappears. Restraint interrupts that chain. It gives the nervous system time to settle. It prevents escalation. It preserves clarity. You are not suppressing emotion. You are containing it. Containment is strength. Most people confuse containment with repression. They are not the same. Repression hides emotion without awareness. Containment acknowledges emotion without acting on it. Containment is trained. It requires discipline. It's not about flaw. It's about discipline. That's the key. Look at leadership. Leaders who react publicly to every challenge lose credibility. They appear unstable. They appear defensive. Leaders who choose restraint command attention. They wait. They assess. They respond selectively. Their words land harder because they are rare. Scarcity increases value. Restraint creates scarcity. This applies even when you are right. Especially when you are right. The urge to correct immediately often comes from ego. Not from necessity. Correction delivered without timing or restraint invites resistance. Restraint allows correction to land. Authority is not proven through correction. It is reinforced through consistency. Consistency requires restraint. Another area restraint builds authority is disagreement. Disagreement does not require immediate confrontation. Most people argue to establish dominance. They believe winning the moment equals winning position. It doesn't. Arguments often cost more authority than they gain. Restraint allows you to disengage without conceding. Silence does not mean surrender. It means you are not playing the wrong game. You don't need their permission to disengage. Remember that. When you refuse to react, you change the frame. You are no longer responding to pressure. You are setting conditions. Conditions favor the composed. Restraint also sharpens your decision-making. When you don't rush to speak or act, you give yourself space to evaluate. Evaluation improves choices. Better choices build trust. Trust compounds authority. People follow those who choose carefully, not those who move constantly. Movement without restraint is activity. Restraint turns activity into direction. That's the key. Restraint also protects long-term reputation. Short-term expression often feels good. It relieves tension. It releases emotion. But it creates permanent records. Words cannot be unsaid. Messages cannot be unseen. Restraint avoids regret. Most people regret what they said in moments of pressure. Few regret what they held back. That pattern is not accidental. Authority is built by minimizing regret. Restraint minimizes regret. This applies in professional settings, in relationships, in conflict. Every environment rewards the person who does not react impulsively. That person appears stable. Stability attracts responsibility. Responsibility builds influence. Influence is authority in action. Restraint also reveals character. Anyone can react. Few can hold position under stress. When you remain composed, people infer competence. Not because they have proof, but because your behavior signals it. Signals matter. Behavior is the strongest signal you send. Restraint sends the signal of self-command. Self-command precedes external command. You cannot lead others if you cannot restrain yourself. That's the key. Here is a practical application. The next time you feel the urge to clarify, stop. Ask yourself one question. Is this necessary, or is it emotional? If it is emotional, wait. If it is necessary, deliver it briefly. Brevity plus restraint is authority. Long explanations are rarely respected. Clear decisions are. Another practice. When challenged publicly, do not respond publicly unless required. Silence often diffuses the challenge. If response is needed, choose timing. Respond privately. Respond later. Respond calmly. This is not avoidance. It is control. You have a choice. That's the key. Restraint also builds internal confidence. When you know you don't have to react, pressure loses leverage. You stop feeling rushed. You stop feeling chased. You act from stability. Stability feels different. It feels quiet. It feels grounded. It feels deliberate. That feeling becomes your baseline. From that baseline, authority grows naturally. Not forced. not performed. Earned. Restraint also filters relationships. People who rely on reaction lose interest when you don't provide it. People who respect discipline lean in. This clarifies your environment. Authority is easier to maintain in a clean environment. Restraint cleans it. You are not becoming silent to be mysterious. You are becoming selective to be effective. Effectiveness beats visibility. Always. Restraint is not the absence of action. It is the control of it. Action guided by restraint is precise. Action without it is reckless. Precision compounds. Recklessness leaks. You are choosing precision. You are choosing discipline. It's not about confidence. It's about control. That's the key. You now understand how restraint builds authority. You see how fewer words create stronger presence. You see how non-reaction protects position. Next, you will learn how emotional discipline prevents others from steering your behavior. Emotion is the fastest way to lose control. Not because emotion is bad, but because emotion is fast. It moves before thought. It speaks before judgment. It acts before clarity. Most people live this way. They feel first. They act second. That order costs them authority. You have a choice. That's the key. Emotion is information. It is not instruction. Anger signals a boundary. Fear signals risk. Frustration signals resistance. None of these tell you what to do. They tell you what to observe. When you act directly from emotion, you skip observation. You trade awareness for release. Release feels good briefly. The consequences last longer. Control begins when you separate feeling from action. That separation is trained. It is not personality. It is discipline. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about directing it. That's the key. Most people believe emotional control means being cold, detached, unfeeling. That belief keeps them reactive. Emotional control means you feel everything. You just don't let feelings decide timing. Timing belongs to you. Emotion rises in waves. It peaks. It fades. If you act at the peak, emotion leads. If you wait for the fall, judgment returns. That pause is where power lives. Stillness before action is not delay. It is alignment. Alignment produces better outcomes. Look at how emotional reactions weaken authority. Raised voice. Defensive tone. Over-explaining. Sharp words. All signals of lost control. Even when the message is correct, the delivery destroys it. Emotion-driven delivery invites resistance. Controlled delivery closes conversation. That difference decides respect. You don't need their permission to stay composed. Remember that. Emotional discipline also protects you from manipulation. Manipulation relies on emotional hooks. Guilt. Fear. Urgency. Approval. If you react emotionally, the hook works. If you pause, it fails. Pausing breaks the mechanism. You are no longer pulled. You are anchored. Anchored people are difficult to steer. That is not stubbornness. It is self-command. Self-command precedes influence. That's the key. Here is where most people go wrong. They try to manage emotion after they speak. After they act. After damage is done. Discipline works before expression. You feel the emotion. You notice it. You do nothing yet. This is the skill. Doing nothing is not avoidance. It is containment. Containment keeps emotion from spilling into behavior. Behavior defines outcomes, not feelings. When you contain emotion, you preserve options. Options mean choice. You have a choice. That's the key. Think about pressure situations, criticism, conflict, deadlines, unexpected problems. Emotion spikes automatically. That is normal. What is not normal is obeying it. Most people do. They justify. They rush. They react. They lose control while thinking they are being decisive. Real decisiveness is calm. Calm does not mean slow. It means accurate. Accuracy beats speed long term. Every time. Emotional discipline also improves internal clarity. When you act emotionally, your mind stays busy afterward. Replaying. Regretting. Justifying. When you act with control, the mind settles. No internal noise. Quiet confidence replaces mental friction. That quiet is strength. Stillness is not weakness. It is stability under load. That's the key. Here is a practical framework. When emotion rises, follow 3 steps. First, notice the sensation. Where is it in the body? Second, name the emotion. Anger, fear, frustration. Third, delay action. Even 10 seconds is enough to shift control. This practice trains the pause. The pause is the foundation of discipline. Without it, there is no choice. Another practice. When you feel provoked, reduce output. Speak less. Move slower. Lower volume. These physical adjustments signal safety to the nervous system. Safety restores clarity. Clarity restores control. This is not psychology. Theory. It is physiology. Your body follows your behavior. Controlled behavior calms the system. Calm system produces better decisions. That's the key. Emotional discipline also reshapes identity. When you stop reacting, you stop seeing yourself as reactive. You trust yourself more. Trust builds confidence that does not need display. Displayed confidence is often insecurity. Quiet confidence is stability. Stability attracts respect. Respect reinforces authority. This loop compounds. Most people never enter it because they leak emotion constantly. You are closing the leaks. You are choosing discipline. It's not about flaw. It's about discipline. That distinction matters. Emotion is not the enemy. Lack of discipline is. When discipline is present, emotion becomes useful. It sharpens awareness. It highlights boundaries. It signals risk. Used correctly, emotion informs action without controlling it. That is mastery. Another mistake people make is thinking emotional control means never responding. That is incorrect. You respond. Just not immediately. Not impulsively. Not emotionally. You respond when response improves outcome. That is the standard. Outcome over relief. Relief is temporary. Outcome is lasting. Most people choose relief. You are learning to choose outcome. You have a choice. That's the key. Notice how emotionally disciplined people operate. They are harder to provoke. Harder to rush. Harder to manipulate. They move steadily. Others adjust to them. That adjustment is influence. Influence is power applied quietly. Quiet power lasts. Loud power burns out. You are building quiet power. This chapter is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming unmovable. Unmovable does not mean rigid. It means centered. Centered people decide. Reactive people respond. Decision beats reaction. Always. You now understand how emotion steals control. You know how containment restores it. You know how stillness protects authority. Next, you will learn how attention, not effort, determines where your power actually goes. Your attention is the gate. Whatever passes through it shapes your life. Most people never guard it. They spend it freely. They leak it constantly. And then they wonder why they feel drained. Why progress feels slow. Why control feels fragile. Attention is not neutral. It either strengthens you or weakens you. You have a choice. That's the key. Every notification you check pulls attention outward. Every unnecessary conversation fragments focus. Every mental loop steals energy. Attention divided becomes power diluted. Most people confuse effort with effectiveness. They work hard while focusing poorly. That creates exhaustion without results. Control begins when attention becomes intentional. Attention is the first discipline. Without it, no other discipline holds. You can have goals. You can have plans. But if your attention is scattered, execution collapses. Stillness protects attention. That's why stillness matters. It's not about calm for comfort. It's about calm for control. Attention follows stimulus automatically. That is biology. Discipline redirects it deliberately. That is training. It's not about flaw. It's about discipline. That's the key. Most people allow their environment to dictate attention. Phones buzzing. Screens flashing. Other people's urgency becoming their priority. This is not productivity. It is exposure. Exposure weakens authority. When your attention is constantly pulled, you are never fully present. Presence is power. Power requires focus. You don't need their permission to protect your attention. Remember that. Guarding attention means deciding what deserves access. Not everything does. Urgent does not mean important. Loud does not mean valuable. Immediate does not mean necessary. These distinctions matter. People who fail to make them stay reactive. Reactive people feel busy. Controlled people create progress. Attention is the difference. Guarding attention also means controlling internal noise. Not just what you see and hear, but what you think. Mental. Rehearsal. Rumination. Imaginary conversations. These drain attention silently. Most people live inside their head reacting to scenarios that are not happening. That steals focus from what is. Stillness interrupts this. When you slow the body, the mind follows. When the mind quiets, attention stabilizes. Stability allows direction. Direction creates results. That's the key. Here is where people get it wrong. They try to eliminate distraction completely. That is unrealistic. The goal is not elimination. The goal is management. You choose when attention moves, not what moves it. This is why boundaries matter. Boundaries around time. Boundaries around communication. Boundaries around mental engagement. Boundaries protect attention. Protected attention compounds. Compounding is invisible at first. One focused hour looks ordinary. Repeated daily, it becomes dominance. Most people never experience this because they never protect focus long enough. They jump. They respond. They fragment. Fragmentation feels active. It produces little. Guarded attention feels slow. It produces depth. Depth outperforms speed. Always. You have a choice. That's the key. Look at how attention leaks in conversation. You listen while preparing your reply. You nod while thinking about something else. You engage halfway. Half attention creates weak outcomes. Full attention creates clarity. Clarity leads to better decisions. Better decisions reinforce control. This applies to work, to learning, to relationships. Where attention goes, quality follows. Guarding attention means being fully where you are, not everywhere at once. Multitasking is a myth. It is rapid switching. Switching costs energy. Energy loss reduces precision. Precision matters. Stillness reduces switching. Stillness keeps attention anchored. Anchored attention is leverage. That's the key. Here is a practical shift. When you start a task, remove alternatives. Close tabs. Silence notifications. Clear physical clutter. This is not discipline theater. It is attention engineering. Your environment either supports focus or fights it. Choose support. You don't need their permission to work without interruption. Another practice. Schedule attention, not just tasks. Decide when you will think deeply. When you will respond. When you will disengage. Unscheduled attention is vulnerable attention. Vulnerability invites interruption. Structure protects focus. Structure creates freedom. This is not rigid control. It is strategic allocation. Your attention is finite. Spend it like a limited resource. Because it is. That's the key. Guarding attention also changes emotional stability. When attention is scattered, emotions spike easily. Small problems feel large. Pressure feels overwhelming. Focused attention shrinks problems. One thing at a time becomes manageable. Calm follows focus. Not the other way around. Most people chase calm emotionally. Controlled people create calm structurally. Structure starts with attention. Another mistake people make is consuming before creating. They scroll. They watch. They absorb endlessly. Creation requires attention. Consumption drains it. Balance matters. Uncontrolled consumption weakens initiative. Guarding attention means choosing when to consume, not reacting to impulse. Impulse is the enemy of focus. Discipline restores it. You have a choice. That's the key. Notice how your energy changes when attention is guarded. You feel steadier, less rushed, more deliberate. That feeling is not comfort. It is alignment. Alignment between intention and action. Alignment reduces friction. Friction wastes energy. Energy preserved becomes momentum. Momentum compounds. This is why focused people appear calm under pressure. They are not carrying unnecessary mental weight. They are not reacting to everything. They choose engagement. Choice is power. Without choice, there is only reaction. You are learning to choose. Guarding attention also means letting some things go. Not every thought needs resolution. Not every message needs reply. Not every issue needs your input. Letting go is not neglect. It is prioritization. Prioritization requires discipline. Discipline protects attention. That's the key. Here is a simple rule. If something does not move you toward your objective, it does not deserve sustained attention. That does not mean ignore reality. It means allocate wisely. Wise allocation beats effort. Always. As you practice guarding attention, you will notice resistance. Others may push. Systems may demand. Habits may pull. This is normal. Discipline is trained against resistance. Each time you redirect attention intentionally, the muscle strengthens. Eventually, focus becomes default. Default focus changes identity. You stop seeing yourself as scattered. You stop feeling pulled. You become centered. Centered people act with clarity. Clarity creates authority. Authority holds under pressure. You are building that foundation. You now understand how attention fuels control. You see how leakage weakens discipline. You know how guarding focus restores power. Next, you will learn how energy, not willpower, determines how long control can be sustained. Energy decides how long control lasts. Most people focus on willpower. They try harder. They push longer. Then they burn out. Control is not lost because of weakness. It is lost because energy was mismanaged. You have a choice. That's the key. When energy drops, discipline collapses. Attention scatters. Emotion takes over. This is not a character flaw. It is a systems problem. You cannot maintain control on empty reserves. Stillness without energy becomes fatigue. Focus without energy becomes strain. Energy is the base layer. Without it, everything above fails. Most people ignore this. They treat the body as separate from the mind. They push through exhaustion. They rely on stimulation. Caffeine. Noise. Urgency. These create temporary alertness. Not sustainable control. Sustainable control comes from managing energy deliberately. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. That's the key. Energy leaks in predictable ways. Poor sleep. Unstructured days. Constant switching. Emotional friction. Each leak seems small. Together, they drain you. When drained, you react faster. You explain more. You lose restraint. This is why tired people are reactive. Not because they lack values. Because they lack fuel. Managing energy restores restraint automatically. Start with sleep. Sleep is not optional. It is structural. Without sleep, attention degrades. Emotional control weakens. Judgment narrows. Most people sacrifice sleep to gain time. They lose more than they gain. An extra hour awake costs clarity the next day. Clarity matters more than hours. You don't need their permission to rest. Remember that. Rest is not laziness. It is maintenance. Maintenance prevents breakdown. Breakdown destroys control. That's the key. Next is rhythm. Most people work against their energy cycles. They force focus when energy is low. They waste high energy periods on trivial tasks. This creates frustration. Energy has peaks and valleys. Discipline aligns work with peaks. High energy for thinking. Low energy for routine. Alignment reduces resistance. Resistance drains energy. Energy preserved becomes stability. Stability supports control. This is not optimization theater. It is survival of discipline. When you fight your own energy, emotion wins. Manage energy, and emotion loses leverage. Another major leak is constant switching. Task to task. Thought to thought. Conversation to conversation. Switching taxes the nervous system. Each switch costs energy. Stillness reduces switching. Single focus conserves energy. Conserved energy sustains attention. Sustained attention sustains authority. That's the chain. Most people feel exhausted not because they do too much, but because they switch too often. Guarding attention was the previous discipline. Managing energy is its extension. Attention drains energy. Energy fuels attention. They reinforce each other. You cannot train one and ignore the other. That's the key. Food matters more than people admit. Not for aesthetics. For stability. Erratic eating creates erratic energy. Energy spikes and crashes destabilize mood. Mood instability weakens control. You react more when blood sugar drops. You rush decisions when depleted. This is physiology, not mindset. Discipline respects physiology. Regular meals. Adequate hydration. Minimal stimulation. These are not lifestyle tips. They are control tools. You don't need their permission to eat for performance. Another energy drain is unresolved emotion. Unprocessed frustration. Lingering resentment. Mental replay. These consume energy silently. You may look calm externally. Internally, energy is bleeding. Stillness helps here. Not by suppressing emotion. By allowing it to pass without action. Emotion unacted upon dissipates. Emotion acted upon multiplies. Multiplication drains energy. Containment preserves it. That's the key. Movement also matters. Stillness does not mean inactivity. A stagnant body creates stagnant energy. Light movement resets the nervous system. Walking. Stretching. Breathing deeply. These are not fitness goals. They are regulation tools. A regulated system holds control longer. An overstimulated or stagnant system snaps faster. Managing energy means balancing stillness and movement. Both are required. Stillness for judgment. Movement for renewal. Another mistake people make is overexposure. Too much information. Too many opinions. Too much input. Input overload drains energy. Your mind processes constantly. Not everything deserves processing. Filtering input preserves energy. That means limiting consumption. News. Social media. Random content. These pull attention and drain energy without return. Consumption without intention is theft. Guarding attention was step 1. Guarding energy is step 2. You have a choice. That's the key. Notice how energy affects timing. When energy is low, everything feels urgent. Patience shortens. Restraint weakens. When energy is stable, timing improves. You wait longer. You choose better. You speak less. This is not coincidence. Energy shapes behavior. Most people try to fix behavior directly. They fail. Fix energy, behavior follows. This is disciplined thinking. Not emotional thinking. That's the key. Here is a practical framework. First, protect sleep. Non-negotiable. Second, align tasks with energy. Think when sharp. Execute routine when dull. Third, reduce switching. One task at a time. Fourth, filter input. Consume intentionally. Fifth, move daily. Not to exhaust. To regulate. Sixth, contain emotion. Let it pass. This is not complicated. It is consistent. Consistency beats intensity. Energy management is boring. And powerful. Powerful things often are. Most people ignore energy until it collapses. You are learning to manage it before. That is foresight. Foresight creates stability. Stability sustains control. Control compounds. That's the key. As you manage energy, you will notice something. Discipline becomes easier. Not because you became stronger. Because the system supports you. You stop fighting yourself. Internal friction drops. With less friction, restraint feels natural. Calm becomes default. This is how calm people stay calm. Not through force. Through structure. Structure protects energy. Energy protects discipline. Discipline protects authority. This is the architecture. Without energy, discipline is temporary. With energy, it is sustainable. You are building sustainability. That is the long game. You now understand how energy underpins control. You see how depletion fuels reaction. You know how managing energy preserves discipline. Next, you will learn how pressure exposes weak systems and how to stay steady when stakes rise. Pressure does not create weakness. It reveals it. When stakes rise, systems are exposed. Habits surface. Training shows. Most people believe pressure changes them. It doesn't. It shows what was already there. You have a choice. That's the key. Under pressure, untrained people speed up. They talk more. They react faster. They narrow their thinking. They believe urgency equals effectiveness. It doesn't. Urgency collapses judgment. Steadiness preserves it. Pressure is not the enemy. Lack of preparation is. Stillness under pressure is not natural. It is trained. That training happens long before pressure arrives. You cannot improvise control in the moment. You either have it or you don't. Pressure exposes whether discipline is internal or cosmetic. That's the key. Most people try to manage pressure externally. They change posture. They force confidence. They mask anxiety. These are surface corrections. Pressure works deeper. It tightens breathing. It accelerates thought. It amplifies emotion. If you don't know how to slow internally, pressure takes over. Stillness is the counter. Not stillness of the body alone. Stillness of the mind. The ability to pause while everything demands speed. That ability is rare. And valuable. Pressure compresses time perception. Everything feels immediate. Decisions feel final. This creates false urgency. False urgency produces mistakes. The disciplined response is to widen the internal timeline. You slow perception. You breathe. You observe. You let the moment unfold. This does not mean delaying action irresponsibly. It means acting from clarity instead of panic. Clarity survives pressure. Panic does not. You have a choice. That's the key. Look at how pressure affects communication. People over-explain. They justify excessively. They try to control perception. This weakens authority. Under pressure, fewer words carry more weight. Precision matters. Silence matters more. Silence creates space. Space allows thinking. Thinking restores control. Pressure cannot dominate a composed mind. It feeds on reaction. Remove reaction, and pressure loses leverage. This is why experienced individuals appear calm. Not because pressure is lower. Because their internal response is trained. They do not match the environment's intensity. They regulate it. Regulation is power. Another mistake people make under pressure is collapsing standards. They compromise discipline to gain speed. Shortcuts. Corners cut. Principles abandoned. This creates long-term damage for short-term relief. Discipline under pressure is what defines character. It's not about flaw. It's about discipline. That's the key. Pressure tests boundaries. Others may push harder. Demand faster. Speak louder. This is where many give ground. Not because they must, but because they feel compelled. Compulsion is not obligation. You don't need their permission to hold your standards. Holding standards under pressure sends a clear signal. You are not moved easily. That signal changes behavior around you. People adjust. Pressure also exposes internal narratives. I have to respond now. I can't afford to pause. I'll lose control if I wait. These are assumptions. Often false. Most situations do not require instant resolution. They require correct resolution. Correct beats fast. Always. Pressure also magnifies emotional noise. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Fear of loss. If you respond to these fears, they grow. If you observe them, they weaken. Observation drains emotion of authority. Emotion needs action to stay alive. Containment dissolves it. This is why pausing feels uncomfortable at first. You are interrupting a pattern. Patterns resist interruption. Resistance means training is working. That's the key. Here is a practical discipline. When pressure hits, reduce output. Lower your voice. Slow your movements. Shorten responses. These signals tell your nervous system that control is present. The body follows behavior. Calm behavior creates calm physiology. Calm physiology supports judgment. Judgment guides action. This loop is reliable. Pressure cannot override it unless you allow it. You have a choice. Another practice. Decide in advance how you will behave under pressure. Not what you will say. How you will be. Steady. Measured. Deliberate. When pressure arrives, you follow the script. This removes improvisation. Improvisation under pressure leads to error. Pre-commitment creates stability. Stability creates authority. Pressure also reveals who you listen to. Under stress, many seek reassurance. They ask too many opinions. They dilute direction. This fragments responsibility. Under pressure, fewer inputs are better. Choose one or two trusted signals. Ignore the rest. Noise increases panic. Selective attention reduces it. Guarding attention under pressure is critical. You learned this earlier. Pressure is where that lesson is tested. Pressure also tests patience. Short patience equals poor outcomes. Long patience creates leverage. Leverage is not force. It is positioning. Positioning requires waiting. Waiting requires discipline. That's the key. Most people fear that patience under pressure looks weak. It doesn't. It looks composed. Composure is rare. Rare qualities stand out. Standing out under pressure builds credibility. Credibility builds trust. Trust builds influence. Influence is authority. Authority holds when pressure increases. This is the chain. Pressure does not have to be eliminated. It must be absorbed. Absorption requires structure. Structure comes from habits. Habits built in calm moments carry you through intense ones. That is why discipline is daily, not situational. If you only practice control when it's easy, you don't have control. You have comfort. Comfort disappears under pressure. Training remains. You are training. You are building steadiness as a default. This default shows when it matters. You now understand how pressure exposes systems. You see why steadiness beats urgency. You know how stillness preserves control when stakes rise. Next, you will integrate everything. How calm becomes identity. Calm is not a technique you turn on. It is a default you build. Most people experience calm only when conditions are easy. When there is no pressure. No demand. No conflict. That is not calm. That is absence of stress. True calm remains when stress is present. You have a choice. That's the key. Making calm your default means you no longer rely on circumstances to regulate you. You regulate yourself. This is the final discipline. Not reacting. Not rushing. Not explaining unnecessarily. Calm becomes how you move through everything. Default behavior shapes identity. Identity shapes outcomes. Most people identify as reactive without realizing it. They say things like, that's just how I am. I respond fast. I speak my mind. I can't help it. These are not traits. They are habits. Habits can be retrained. Calm is trained. That's the key. A default is built through repetition, not through intention alone. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you reinforce calm. Every time you slow instead of rush, you reinforce calm. Every time you choose restraint over expression, you reinforce calm. Small decisions compound. Over time, calm stops feeling like effort. It becomes automatic. Automatic calm is power. Because it frees attention. You are no longer managing yourself constantly. You are stable by default. That stability changes everything. Most people waste energy regulating emotion, managing reactions, repairing damage. You don't. That energy becomes available for thinking, planning, and execution. Calm creates surplus. Surplus creates leverage. Leverage creates results. That's the key. Making calm your default also changes how others treat you. People mirror behavior. When you are calm, others slow down. When you do not react, others adjust. When you do not escalate, tension dissolves. This is not manipulation. It is regulation. You regulate the environment by regulating yourself. Most people try to control situations directly. They fail. Control flows outward from the internal state. Internal chaos produces external chaos. Internal order produces external order. You are building internal order. Calm also simplifies decision-making. When calm is default, decisions are not rushed. You don't feel pressure to decide immediately. You don't feel pulled by urgency. You don't feel forced to respond. You decide when to decide. That alone eliminates many mistakes. Most mistakes come from pressure-driven decisions. Calm removes pressure's grip. You have a choice. That's the key. Default calm also protects long-term direction. When reactive, people change course too often. They pivot emotionally. They chase relief. Calm anchors direction. You stay aligned with long-term objectives. Short-term noise loses influence. This is why calm people appear consistent. Consistency is not rigidity. It is alignment. Alignment between values, timing, and action. Alignment builds trust. Trust builds authority. Authority compounds. Another effect of default calm is reduced mental noise. No replaying conversations. No obsessing over reactions. No internal arguments. The mind becomes quieter. Quiet is not emptiness. Quiet is capacity. Capacity to think clearly. Capacity to notice details. Capacity to choose better. This is why calm people often seem perceptive. They are not distracted by internal chaos. They are present. Presence is rare. Rare qualities stand out without effort. Calm also strengthens discipline across other areas. When calm is default, routines stick easier. Focus holds longer. Energy stabilizes. Everything you trained earlier becomes easier to maintain. This is integration. Each discipline supports the others. Reaction control supports attention. Attention supports energy. Energy supports steadiness under pressure. Steadiness under pressure reinforces calm. The loop closes. That's the key. Making calm your default requires one ongoing commitment. You do not negotiate with urgency. Urgency will always exist. Deadlines. Expectations. Other people's emotions. Urgency is external. Calm is internal. You decide which one leads. Every time you feel rushed, slow slightly. Every time you feel provoked, pause. Every time you feel the urge to explain, wait. These are micro adjustments. They feel small. They are not. They rewire behavior. Over time, the nervous system learns safety in stillness. Safety removes the need to react. Reaction disappears. Choice appears. You have a choice. That's the key. Another commitment is consistency under low stakes. Most people practice discipline only when things matter. That's too late. You build default calm in ordinary moments. Emails. Messages. Minor disagreements. Small delays. These moments are training ground. If you can stay calm when it doesn't matter, you will stay calm when it does. Calm under pressure is earned in calm moments, not created on demand. This is where most fail. They wait for pressure to practice. Pressure exposes, not teaches. Practice happens daily. Calm also becomes part of how you speak. Fewer words. Clear statements. No excess explanation. Your communication sharpens. People understand you faster. Not because you speak louder. Because you speak from stability. Stability gives words weight. Weight commands attention. Attention creates influence. Influence shapes outcomes. Another change is how you experience time. When reactive, time feels scarce. Everything feels urgent. When calm, time expands. You see options. You choose timing. You are no longer chasing moments. You are directing them. Direction replaces reaction. Direction is leadership. Leadership does not require position. It requires self-command. Self-command is calm sustained. That's the key. Making calm your default also means accepting discomfort. Pausing feels uncomfortable at first. Not reacting feels unnatural. Silence feels heavy. This discomfort is temporary. It is withdrawal from reaction. Like any habit change, there is resistance. If you escape discomfort by reacting, you reinforce the old pattern. If you sit with discomfort, the pattern breaks. Breaks create space. Space creates control. Control becomes identity. You are no longer someone who tries to stay calm. You are calm. This identity shift is subtle but permanent. Identity drives behavior effortlessly. Effort disappears. This is mastery. Most people never reach it because they chase techniques. Calm is not a trick. It is a way of being built through discipline. Discipline is not restriction. It is structure that creates freedom. Freedom from emotional whiplash. Freedom from urgency. Freedom from regret. Freedom to decide. That's the key. As calm becomes default, you will notice fewer conflicts escalate. Fewer conversations drain you. Fewer decisions haunt you later. Life becomes quieter. Not easier. Clearer. Clarity beats ease. Ease disappears when challenged. Clarity holds. This is why calm people appear resilient. They are not harder. They are clearer. Clarity survives stress. Stress feeds confusion. You are choosing clarity. You are choosing control. You are choosing discipline over impulse. This is the end of instruction. Not the end of practice. Practice continues daily. In small moments. In ordinary situations. Without recognition. That is where default is built. You have learned how reaction weakens. How silence holds ground. How observation sharpens judgment. How timing reshapes power. How restraint builds authority. How emotional discipline preserves control. How attention and energy sustain it. How steadiness under pressure reveals mastery. Now you integrate. Calm is no longer something you seek. It is something you apply consistently, quietly, without effort. This is not about being passive. It is about being unmovable. From this point forward, do less reacting. Do more choosing. Slow the moment. Hold the pause. Let calm lead. That is control. And control, applied daily, becomes who you are. Calm is not something you wait for. It is something you practice. Every reaction you restrain strengthens control. Every pause you choose restores authority. The world rewards speed, but it obeys stability. When others rush, you remain steady. When others explain, you observe. When others react, you decide. This is not about suppression. It is about command. Calm is discipline applied in real time. Calm is attention under pressure. Calm is power without noise. From this moment forward, slow the moment. Choose timing over impulse. Choose restraint over urgency. Practice it daily. Apply it deliberately. Let calm define how you move through pressure. Control is not loud. Control is calm.